Nixon, board member.
Any gender, board member. Les Stuhlberg, vice chairman.
Board member. Richard Brishek, director of municipal services.
Cynthia Donovan, director of planning services.
We have board member Cherie Neitz joining us by teleconference.
Yes.
The agenda.
Les, I just have a question.
Go ahead, Cherie.
Just have a question for formality as we're going through it. Seeing that I have a family member with a subdivision coming forward, how would you like me to address that since I'm on the phone?
From administration standpoint, simply not engaging the discussion or the vote, I think is sufficient. I don't think the board member would need to be off the line. They have their statutory rights as a member of the public.
Did you hear that, Cherie?
Yes. I don't vote, I don't participate, but the line will be unmuted.
Yes. Being
Okay,
that you're not present, you'll have no influence on the vote, and if you will not be allowed comment if that's what you choose. So,
yes.
But you'll remain online for the meeting. Okay.
Okay.
The agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda? We have an in-camera package, but that's included. Okay, could I get an approval for the agenda, please? Mr. Clark?
Move the agenda, please.
All those in favor? Cherie, are you in favor of the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, carried. Minute approval from the February 26th meeting. Did everyone get a chance to look at those? Mr. Grover moves. All those in favor? And Cherie, are you in favor of the minutes being approved?
Yes.
Carried. Was there any business arising from the minutes? If not, we'll move to reports. The development officer's report. It is in page 3 of our package. And Jacinta, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have the list of our development permits. We are behind last year's total at this time. And as far as subdivisions, we are slightly ahead of last year. And there are several projects on the go. Tomorrow I have a teleconference meeting with the committee members, or the planners rather, from the Buffalo Lake Municipal Development Plan. And this meeting is regarding the proposed amendments to the Buffalo Lake IDP. And we are initiating the dispute resolution procedures for the Buffalo Lake South Shore IDP. We're starting with stage 1 on Monday, May the 4th. And on May the 5th, the following day, we have the meeting with the CAOs of all our municipal partners. And so that process is getting underway next week. And we have several, the Métis Nations had applied for a development permit, as you know, for an expansion of their campground. And we had required a flood mitigation report. And they provided a report, but it wasn't sufficient to declare the site suitable for development. And with the recent floodings, it just hit home of how important it is to get the flood mitigation plan stamped by an engineer, ensuring that the property is suitable for development. So they are likely going to not proceed because but we haven't heard for sure that is likely what they will possibly withdraw their application for that. And so that summarizes the report as far as any ongoing activities last week.
Okay. Thank you, Jacinta. Is there a mover for the development officer's report? Go ahead, Mr. Gender.
We were wanting to start what stage for the Buffalo Lake South Shore?
We had requested that we start at the mediation because And I mean, we will get there, but, or we don't know. I mean, we go through the process, and the Summer Village of White Sands has requested that we start at stage one. So, we start at stage one, which is Leanne, Jason Olson, and myself will meet on Monday. And if we aren't able to resolve the issue, then we move to stage two, which will be the CAOs, Yvette and Andrew, and the two Summer Village representatives. And then after that, we go to the planning committee, which is the Buffalo Lake South Shore IDP committee. And following that, there's the mediation process. And then stage five, if we haven't resolved the issue by then, we would go into the municipal government board. We would submit a bylaw and to amend the statutory plan, and it could be appealed and go to the municipal government board.
Like, was there a reason why they wanted to start right at number one instead of jumping through some of the hoops?
They didn't really give an explanation. I think they just feel that we should go through the process that's outlined in the document, and that is the procedures that's outlined. So they're just wanting to start at stage one.
If both Roshan Sands and White Sands decide to go that way, is it a majority saying when we start or where they start? Or is it everyone have to go in agreement?
We just sent a proposal that we possibly start at stage 4, which would be the mediation. But they didn't give any explanation. They just requested that we start at stage 1, and we didn't. You know, we have that right to start at stage 1.
The plan requires that we start at stage 1, so to skip that would require consensus. Which was not achieved. So we will start with stage 1.
That clarifies it for you.
Cynthia, you'd mentioned that it goes to the Buffalo Lake South Shore, not the which body is it going to? Because there's two bodies there.
Buffalo Lake IDP encompasses the 5 municipalities, whereas the South Shore is just the 2 summer villages and the county. Yes, on Monday, but on tomorrow we have a meeting, or I have a teleconference with the Buffalo Lake IDP, which is the 5 municipalities.
Oh, I just wanted to make sure that the one that we had to go to was just the 3 of them, right?
Yes.
So, in that particular case, how does the vote structure set up there?
Well, we won't be voting at this point. It would be a bylaw amendment. So there's a long process if we.
And we go, so there is no voting. There will be a vote to decide whether they basically, if it gets turned down, I guess, right?
That would be at the planning committee level. Like we can.
Okay, but the South Shore IDP could overturn the planning committee's decision, correct? But if they, and so how does that structure set up as far as voting? Does anybody know?
Andrew, I can't hear what Yvette's saying.
I'm talking and then Mike now. Sorry. So it's a committee level. The committee level, maybe they come to consensus, so they would go back to their respective councils. If council decides they don't care and still don't want to go through with it, you have the final say.
Right, and I get that, but at that committee level, I'm trying to understand.
There's 2 councilors from each council that's there. Not full councils, but
right. So they each get 2 votes?
Yes, we get 2, they get 2, they get 2, we get 2, and Roshan Sands gets 2.
Yeah, we need to disband that.
Dispute, though, is only ever resolved by consensus by nature of a dispute, right? So this isn't, any other amendment. This is the county of Stettler has initiated that we have, a fundamental issue with the plan that has been unaddressed by the other members. So a dispute needs to be resolved either by consensus or by binding arbitration, and that would be step 5, the dispute resolution process. So if the planning committee can't come to resolution, that's when we move to mediation. The mediator will try and mediate the issue and find and affect consensus. But failing that, then I suppose the breakdown then is that the municipality may pass a bylaw. The initiating municipality may pass a bylaw, and the resultant municipalities may then issue appeal under Section 690 of the MGA, which goes to the Municipal Government Board, which acts as an arbitrator in this case.
Where's the point, sorry, Mr. Chairman, to administration, where's the point that we say we want out?
After stage 4. If the mediator cannot affect consensus between the councils or the planning group, that is when you can pass a bylaw doing what you want, or pass first reading of a bylaw.
Then they still can go to a 690 appeal.
They can always go to a 690 appeal with or without a Buffalo Lake IDP. That's a Municipal Government Act regulation. If it's affecting the municipality, they have a right to a 690 appeal, which is heard by the municipal government.
And Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, who pays for the arbitrator? Is that paid by the provincial government or by us?
Thank
Andrew,
you,
I can't-
administration.
What was just said, Andrew? I couldn't hear.
Just that the municipal government board arbitration can be split either by obtaining granting or doing an even split.
Thank you, staff, for the clarification on that. Hopefully, all 3 municipalities can get on the same page before it goes to mediation. So at that point, it's decided from outside the community how it goes, and if we decide beforehand, it's decided within the community. Okay, and
Andrew, this is cutting out really bad.
it's not.
You did. On the top.
On now? Okay, sorry, Sheree. Okay, we're gonna do this. Do we apply for a grant? Do we, why would we want to apply for a grant? Why wouldn't it just be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3?
That would be a consensus by the municipalities, right? Like perhaps the summer villages would like to apply for a grant because they have a smaller budget than we do. Not much these days, but, and sometimes those grants can take up to 6 months. I think that would be too long for us to wait. Therefore, I would recommend that we get on with it as quickly as we can, and the mediator would bill each municipality equally.
Okay, that's exactly what I wanted to know, because I was thinking the same thing, 4 to 5 months, 6 months, 7 months. And when in the situation we're in with the country right now, I think it could take longer than that. So as long as they know going into it, to make them aware, whoever sits on that board, that they're going, or what are you, that they're going to be in for a 1/3, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you for pointing out there will be costs to this. I still would need a mover for the development officer's report. Mr. Nixon moves. All in favor? And
I'm in favor.
Cherie is in favor as well, so it's carried. We'll now move to the development permits. And do we have someone online?
We have 2 applicants online. So if we could move up items 6.4 and then 6.5. Scott Telecom Services at 6.4, and then Sonalta Fertilizer 6.5.
Since we have 2 participants online, on the telephone line, we'll move to 6.4 and 6.5 first, with the blessing of this board, if that's okay with everyone. We will move to that. And Jacinta, could you start with 6.4, the Scott Telecom Services?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
7.
The applicant, on behalf of ExploreNet Communication Incorporated, is proposing to replace an existing 96-foot communication antenna and structure with a 100-foot structure at 24 Railway Avenue, Erskine. The applicant is requesting a 42% variance to the minimum east side yard setback from 20 feet to 11.5 feet from the base of the tower. The proposed rear yard setback is 24 feet, which exceeds the minimum requirement. The applicant has indicated that they have submitted a land use proposal application to NAV Canada for review. An application has been submitted to Alberta Transportation as the subject property is adjacent to Highway 12. An amendment to the county's land use bylaw 163420 was given first reading at the April 27th meeting to provide for the discretionary use of a communication antenna and structure in the Hamlet Commercial Land Use District. I have received approval for the tower from Alberta Transportation. They has issued a roadside development permit. And the conditions are listed under 3.1.
Thank you, Jacinta. There are some options, and do we need to hear from the
We can
Burnett people?
give them the opportunity to speak now. I'll just unmute them if the board has no issue with that.
And ExploreNet, if they would like at this time to offer some information on their behalf, you're welcome to do so.
Hi there. Thanks for having us today. This is Riley Brown. I'm the Director of Site Acquisition and Management at ExploreNet. I handle our real estate portfolio across the country of tower sites and co-locations, et cetera. Happy to answer any questions or provide maybe some history on the site if council would like. I'm not sure if everyone else hears a little bit of feedback, but a little bit feedback on the line. Hello? No?
How about now? Can you hear us all right now?
Yeah, I can hear now. There was a little bit of feedback for a while, but I can hear you now.
Okay, Mr. Grover, one of our board members, has a question for you.
Sure.
Yeah, my question was this 42% setback, but does that include your cables and your anchors?
Oh, well, there's no anchors for it. It's a foundation that's in the ground for this particular tower, so it's a self-supporting tower. What we're doing in this particular tower site is we actually have had a tower there for about 14 years now that was adjacent to the building. And typically we would just, install on our existing facilities, but the gear we put up today is a little bit bigger than what we used to put up, so it necessitated replacing the tower with a more robust structure. So in this particular circumstance, in discussion with the property owner and whatnot, when we were discussing what to do in terms of the rebuild, that was what it kind of transpired, and we came to an agreement to move it to the back corner of the property to keep it out of the way from the rest of his building and the other property line. But so to answer your question, it's there's no additional guy wires or anchors beyond the base of the tower.
No, that's good. If it's freestanding, it's freestanding.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gender also has a question.
Just wondering, say, like on their insurance, see, like whenever we generally hire contractors, they either have a core or a C-core to cover the backside of the county. So I would like to be able to see that the county has within their grasp a copy of your insurance so that we are held not liable if anything does happen to that one, because 100 feet will hit a lot of homes if it ever come down.
I completely agree. So there's a particular engineering code for towers, which is called CSA S37. So ExploreNet designs all their towers in accordance with the CSA code for towers. So there really should never be a situation where a tower would fail onto a property or a neighboring property if the tower has been engineered to that particular standard. That's the very reason why we're actually replacing the tower that's there today with a more robust structure to build a better structure for communication infrastructure within the community. So in terms of insurance, we obviously have insurance for all our sites across the country. We typically have arrangements with our landlords to to cover them from insurance-wise, and I can certainly take it back to ask our folks internally about extending that. And I'm not entirely sure what the answer would be, but it's certainly something we could take away.
Does the board have any further questions for Riley?
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
Mr. Nyberg is asking a question.
Mr. Gender, are you putting that on as a stipulation, as a, you would like to see that as a, I think that should probably be voted on. I'm not necessarily in favor of that. If this was any other organization, I don't necessarily see that we ask that going forward with any other organization. There's many structures that are up in our communities that we don't have the request of that. Not that it's a big deal. I'm sure that they could send us a letter. I'm just seeing how this is going to play out into the future if they sell, or there's just a number of problems that I see arising from this. This is a highly regulated industry within our country already. They are the fact that NAV Canada has to be in parcel of what these guys are doing. This isn't something that I see as concern. I understand the concern that you have, but I'm not so sure that we can make that a condition, or at least make one that works for us.
If you'd like me to add maybe a little to it as well in terms of the towers themselves. So to put it in perspective, in terms of the regulation that we follow under CSA S37, anytime we want to add any additional equipment to this tower, we retain an engineer to run an analysis. So if we're going to add one additional antenna, anywhere on the tower, we have an engineer review the tower, they seal it, we install in accordance with what they review. So it is a very regulated industry in that respect, that we always follow sound engineering principles with respect to our tower portfolio. And, the same would be said of any other large carrier, whether it's TELUS or Bell or Rogers, et cetera. We all follow the same guidelines.
Mr. Nyberg?
And through to administration, if I was in downtown Erskine, Alberta, and wanted to put up the old-fashioned rotary antenna, and it was 100 feet tall, is there anything that I would need from the County of Stettler? Is there a development permit on a radio antenna that I have to put up? Or the old style. I know that sounds so old. I'm dating myself by a lot, but the old
Would be the same process because of the height of the structure.
What is the height it becomes an issue?
30 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, in this case, since there was an existing tower there, this is generally exempt in most places per ISED's like an industry status protocol for towers. When you replace an existing facility, it's one of the exemptions under their guidelines for towers. The idea that carriers like ourselves can upgrade facilities to provide the best services to our customers and to your residents.
Mr. Clark has a question.
Yes, just more of a comment too, though, is there is one of these bigger towers right north of the Legion, Stettler here. I believe Exportnet has it, because WhisperNet, I believe, had it before, and so it's right within the town limits itself and within houses. So this isn't the first time this has happened.
Yeah, we've got a number of sites in the area. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Riley.
I was just going to say, we do have a number of sites surrounding Erskine, so this would be the one site we would have in town. And the reason we were using this location, it was already our existing facility, so hence the plan to replace our existing tower. So once the new tower is constructed, the tower that's adjacent to the building will be removed, and the equipment will be moved to the new tower.
Okay. And Mr. Gender, did you have a further question? Go ahead.
For administration, if we, with this, say like if the tower did fail and fell, and we give it the blessing to go ahead, do we have any liability as a county?
There was damage and there was a lawsuit filed, that the county would definitely be named in it, but the liability would be with ExploreNet.
Yeah, I would concur that like all the liability would fall to the proponent of the tower, and that's why we follow sound engineering, so we don't ever end up in a situation like that.
Well, before we get too much further into discussion, I think we do need a motion if we want to add a further clause to the conditions. So,
Mr. Chairman, I do have some questions that what I would have as concern, and maybe this could be to Riley. Is that okay, Mr. Chairman?
and I'll just identify Mr. Nyberg is speaking.
Great. So Riley, in the case that a few years down the road, ExploreNet goes defunct, not saying that it's going to, I'm just saying, they abandon this site, who's responsible to clean it up?
Well, yeah, I guess that's a good question. I think the chances of that happening are really unlikely. Just with the company like ExploreNet or any other large carrier that, we have a bunch of assets and towers being one of them. So, there's a lot of interest generally in towers. So I would think that someone in a worst case scenario would typically acquire the assets, which would include, the towers themselves. So I think it would be, whatever the successor entity would be down the road would be liable because they would take, ownership of the assets themselves.
Where I have problems, where I have problems, Riley, is very unlikely is something that I've heard from a multitude of oil and gas companies in the last 3 to 4 years. Enron comes to example, one of the largest ones, too big to fail, it failed. So what I'm saying is, what's the cost of tearing that tower down?
Generally, the cost to take down a tower like that, you're really just having a crane come and remove it off the foundation. So you're generally $5,000 to $10,000, I would say.
And I understand what Mr. Gender's saying. As long as you guys are in business, I'm not worried about it. The day that you guys cease to be in business and we then become responsible for that tower.
I don't think it would ever be the
biggest concern.
Yeah, no, I can understand where you're coming from, but I don't think it would really ever be the community's concern, even in that kind of rare circumstance, because the commercial arrangements between ExploreNet, for instance, and the landlord of the property. So I don't think it would be a situation, even in that worst case scenario, that it would be something that the community would be dealing with. It would be between the individual who owns the piece of land at the time and then whatever entity, owned the tower down the road. We lease space, right, for all these tower sites.
If you don't mind, I was just going to provide some extra clarification from the perspective is that ultimately if there was an insolvency and no one picked up the assets, ultimately that is still sitting on a specific landowner's land, becomes the responsibility of the landowner. If they fail to remedy any issues that are safety, nuisance, or otherwise, we would use our regular bylaw enforcement powers to either complete the work and bill it to the tax roll or just force compliance upon the landowner.
So to that end, I feel comfortable in saying that that's not going to be an issue going forward. I understand Mr. Gender's concerns about the liability issue. Liability for me becomes a real problem when there is no owner, but in this case it sounds like there's multiple layers in place before we'd ever get to that.
Yeah, I think it'd be a really rare circumstance. I think the other reality is that if there was another competitor, right, they would certainly be probably keen to acquire it too. But I don't think that situation would be very unlikely for that to occur.
Mr. Chairman, I have another. Sorry. This is pertaining to
this. Okay. One more, Mr. Nyberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for bearing with me. Riley, you're, I'm sure, aware that this site has already started. And
yes, it is. Yeah.
It started without a development permit, of course. We have a $1,000 fine supposedly put in place that I don't think we've ever issued. I hope that you understand the gravity that this board has been placed in the fact that giving a 42% lenience over something that has already been constructed really puts us in a tight position.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that. And maybe I'll try to frame it from our perspective too, because the reason that we didn't even seek a development permit on it, since it was a replacement of an existing facility. So the way we interpreted it for this is it's an exempt facility, and that's why we had, made all the arrangements to build the new tower and just proceeded with it as normal course, which we do across the country as we upgrade sites. So that's why the town was not consulted in terms of a development permit and whatnot for this particular site. We're obviously happy to entertain the process and contribute fees, et cetera, or if should be a fine, we'd be okay with that, I suppose, too. But that's why we did not seek the approval of the town for this particular development, because we interpreted it as an exempt facility. Under the ISED, which is Industry Canada's latest and greatest name, they deal with all things telecommunication towers, and they have a number of circumstances where carriers can just kind of go about their typical business, and one of them is when it's a replacement of an existing tower. And other examples, if it's, for instance, on a rooftop. So there's a number of situations where carriers would typically just go and continue with their regular activities in terms of maintaining their network, and that's how we had proceeded with this one.
Les, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Is that for me, Les?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Concern is, I know this is a replacement of a tower, but the tower is actually moved to a different location in the yard. And from looking at the pictures, it seems to me much taller than the other one was, and it also seems to be a lot closer to the homes in that area. Do you guys ever erect towers that are that close to dwellings?
Yeah, really. Oftentimes we rent actual space from owners, like single-family homes as well. So that's pretty commonplace. Many of our landlords are residents of the homes themselves, so we're in their backyard or front yard, depending on the parcel. Sometimes it's rural farm parcel, etc. In this particular case, yes, the tower did move about 30 feet on the property, and that was in discussion with the landlord at the time when we were planning the rebuild. Height-wise, it's the exact same. The tower that's coming down is a 30 meter tower, and what's going up is a 30 meter tower. So there's been no change to the height of the tower, and that ties specifically to and just like I said, the protocol with regards to towers, that any tower structure that's being replaced can be replaced up to a height of 25% taller, and in this case, we're replacing it with a like height tower of the same height.
Okay, so it's the same height.
It's the same height.
Okay, in the picture it looks a lot taller.
Yeah, probably just when it's on the ground, it looks a little bit bigger and whatnot.
Okay, now we have 3 more questions from Mr. Clark, Mr. Nixon, Mr. Jim.
This is.
It's really hard to hear again, so I'm not sure if anyone else is having trouble.
This is to our administration. There was a tower built south of Gadsby that stood fairly high on a hill up till about 3 months ago, and it has been laid over. It hasn't been. I don't believe it was laid over with a crane. So I'm just curious. That does bring us back to the point on who's responsible for getting rid of these towers after it happens. So it is fine if another major company buys it, but in a case like this, I think people just walked. And that tower, luckily, there's no houses around because it's laying flat on its side out in the prairie. So it's just a comment as we're if we vote through with this.
Mr. Nixon.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to move that we approve this development permit according to the conditions in 3.1.
Okay. Did you have another comment, Mr. Gender? Okay, Mr. Gender.
One part that really waves a flag for me on this one here, because it'd be about 4 years ago it was brought before this board about an unsightly area in there, and we had made a part of saying, okay, it was to be concealed, and it never was. So I'm just kind of it's just kind of another flag here the second time around that the first one was not really adhered to. And also, I'm just kind of wondering, like in the past, whenever I've had any contracts in there, if there was any bonding, the county was named also in there. So I'm just kind of wondering, I'm still after the insurance part, whether the county can be named as not being liable for anything like that, in case of a collapse of the tower. Thank you.
Mr. Nyberg?
So, Mr. Gender, I think the issue that being with that is I'm not so sure. I think we can make the request, but if it's not possible from their point, then one of the conditions wouldn't be filled, and it becomes a stagnant portion here. Is there a way through to administration that we can make that request, but not a condition? Is there a possibility of something along that line? Because as a condition would hold up the development permit.
It would have to be renewable every year. I mean, insurance, we can take the insurance this year, but every year would have to be have a copy of the renewed policy. So I guess we do have like some of the other commercial activities that have some liability concerns. We do have copies of their insurance that they send a renewal every year. We keep it on our records.
Okay, Andrew Brishik from administration.
Just Councillor Gender and for the edification for the board. At the end of the day, especially when you're considering your capacity as a development authority, there's no such thing as eliminating liability to the county. Wish that it could. You will always get sued, and then a court will rule on whether the steps you took were reasonable. And so to say, well, was there an insurance policy covering it or not? Even if there is, I mean, that insurance policy could potentially go after the county. That to have a named or have a condition requiring an insurance policy, or that the county be named, or anything to that effect, isn't really ever going to provide us any limit. It's not going to reduce our exposure against administrative errors and omissions type lawsuit. You see cities that allow houses built in floodplains sued as a result, and depending on the planning practices that happen, that sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not. But ultimately, when there's money to be had, they'll target the public arena.
Thank you. Yeah, we might be overthinking this. It might be overkill, because this is an engineered project in a regulated industry, and so it just makes sense they're going to have their own insurance.
Yeah, and to put into perspective, sure, if it helps to put in perspective, we're spending in excess of $150,000 on this particular tower as well. So it's a substantial investment for Xplornet to improve internet service for the residents. So it's we obviously want to make sure that's protected, and that's why we make sure we follow all the sound engineering practices and whatnot to ensure the tower is going to be there for many, many years.
CEO Cassidy has a comment.
Well, I just want to remind council that the situation is a little bit different. Ultimately, the landowner is responsible. So if something, like Xplornet does go broke, they don't clean up the tower, the landowner would be responsible for that, even if we had to go in and clean it up. And eventually, we would take ownership of the property and sell it to recoup our losses. Oil and gas, we don't have that ability. So that's the big difference between the two developments, I think.
That's good information for sure. And Mr. Grover, you had a comment.
Yeah, he talks about probably will not. Well, oil probably will not. We thought we would never just have to give it away. And the Titanic, they thought it was a pretty good sailing ship, and it was engineered and everything else. What happened to it? So all I'm saying, I'm not a naysayer, and I'd like to see development, and I'd like to see towers and better cell service and all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, as a board members, we're here to protect the county's butt. That's it. Thank you.
Les, I have a question.
Just before you go ahead, I just have a comment. If we get hung up on that little word if, we would never approve anything in this county. We wouldn't step out of our house if a hurricane or a tornado might come that day, I mean, the possibilities are endless of if, but I think you just got to use some common sense here. And then Cherie, you have a comment.
Yes, I have a question to all the board members. Seeing that we have approved first reading, would this not go through until all readings have, the bylaw has been passed?
Jacinta will comment on that.
Thank you for the question. So we have second reading scheduled for May 13th, and the appeal period for this application is 21 days. So the second reading would occur prior to the issuance of the development permit. And so, you know, they are being done simultaneously, but they both will be the second reading and possibly third reading on May 13th, and the permit would not be issued until the 21 days after it's advertised. I don't know if that answers your question, Cherie. Is that?
Well, sorry, I have major feedback coming in my phone. Would one of the conditions be that they would, if it was approved today, that they wouldn't start until after the bylaw was approved?
So the bylaw would receive second and third reading on May 13th, and the permit will not be issued until the appeal period has lapsed, which is 3 weeks or 21 days following the advertisement. So I will be sending it to all the adjacent landowners and advertising it in our local paper. So that appeal period won't end, and I don't have the date, but it will be 3 weeks after tomorrow, so that it will be beyond the date that we will be giving the second and third reading of the bylaw.
Plus, if I may, Mr. Chairman, if the council does not pass the bylaw amendment, then one of the conditions of the permit will not be met and the tower will not be going up.
Okay, thank you.
We do have a motion on the floor by Mr. Nixon to approve this permit with conditions. So is there any further discussion?
Earlier, it's another comment though, but it's just basically, this is through NAV Canada. An engineer that belongs to APAGA will be signing off on that. So from a liability basis, those calculations should be in place, and basically that person stamped, they're liable for it. It's numbered, they're liable. So that doesn't help if it does fall on somebody else and somebody gets hurt. But I mean, it is still is a fully engineered structure. So.
Any other discussion? Mr. Gender.
Page 37, like when authorization from the landowner to for constructing this, there isn't any date on the letter. I'm just kind of wondering, is there a reason why not a date?
Brown, could you reply? Oh, sorry.
I think Jacinta has
I was going to ask if Mr. Brown could reply. I don't know why.
Oh, sorry. For which particular?
on page 30. Oh, it wouldn't be on his copy, would it?
I'm only looking at the
Letter
original
of
one.
Letter of authorization, Riley, that you received from the landowner.
Okay, I may not have that at hand here.
Sorry, I could.
It may have been what Scott Land had submitted, but I just don't have it here in front of me. We typically, like, for instance, we have a lease with the landowner, and they generally provide us documentation for planning, et cetera. So it could have been one of our standard form letters, I suppose. I just don't have the document you're referring to in front of me here.
Okay. And Jacinta has something to add.
Sorry, I misunderstood the question. I thought you said gate as a gate to the lease So yes, the approval is part of the lease agreement. So that is an excerpt from the agreement.
Yeah.
A lease agreement that was attached to the application with the landowner to lease the site.
Yeah, again, it has been leased for 14 years or so already. It's been a long-standing arrangement we've had with that landowner or previous landowners.
Mr. Clark.
Just just at the bottom of that page 37, there is an Erskine, Alberta ground site agreement, which is 03/22/19. So I'd assume that was March 22nd last year. Just by the file name.
Great.
Sounds about right.
I'd like to call the question, Mr.
I was just going to say, I think we've discussed this pretty lengthy. All those in favor of Mr. Nixon's motion? And Cherie, are you in favor or opposed to this development permit? Cherie, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
The question has been called. Mr. Nixon moved to approve this development permit with conditions, and the board has all voted except we're waiting for your vote.
In favor.
Okay, carried unanimously. Oh, was there?
Yeah, Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did he?
Yeah, he
voted. Okay.
sorry, it was carried.
Everybody else's hands, but you must have just.
It was carried unanimously for the record.
Wait.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Well, now we'll move on to 6.5. It's development permit 20014 with Sun Alta Fertilizer.
Our package.
And it's on page 40 of the board package. Jacinta, if you could do that one, please.
Chairman. So the applicant is proposing to develop an agricultural supply depot on the southwest of 114021 west of the 4th. The proposed use is discretionary in the agricultural district of the county's land use bylaw. And the definition of an ag supply depot, we've had a recent application for this, so I'm sure you realize that it does fall under that definition. So the ag supply depot will consist of the processing, stockpiling, and loading of cement kiln dust. The applicant has indicated that 2 trucks will be transporting the processed product from the site. Access to the site is provided off of Range Road 21-2. There is currently a permanent road band restriction of 75% axle weight on Range Road 21-2 from Highway 601 north to Township Road 40-2 and west to the entrance of the Old McDonald Resort. The processing site will be approximately 300 yards from the road. The proposed development will employ a maximum of 2 resident employees. Processing and outdoor storage of the CKD will be in an uncovered cement block enclosure. So Mr. Anderson is on the phone if you have any questions. Okay.
Hi, go
Mr.
ahead.
Rand?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Anderson, if you have some comments you'd like to offer now, go ahead.
Okay, so as we know, we pulled out of the Mullendike site last year. The CKD that was left there, we pulled back to my place. It's actually on the northwest of 11. It's right on the borderline between northwest and southwest 11. So in my application, I think I put in the west half of 11. Got to remember that my terrain out here is not conducive to have an end dump dumping everywhere. So to find a flat spot that you can dump an end dump is very hard to find. So the site that I have on the northwest of 11 is, the approach is right on a hill. It's got good visibility. We're away from the highway. We're middle of the quarter, and there's no residents or acreages within, well, the closest one's a half mile away.
Thank you. Does any of the board have questions for Mr. Anderson? Mr. Clark?
Yes, Mr. Anderson, just with the 75% banned road, how are you going to honor that ban situation with end dumps and hauling in and out of there?
Oh, it's impossible. Because you got a 75% road ban on this thing 365 days a year. And right now, I don't know, I tried to get a hold of you yesterday or a couple of days ago. If you have a question about the integrity of this road, that I basically told all the other counselors, come and have a look at it and see if you think that it's even going to hold up to car traffic this year.
So the site is about how far north of 601?
It's a mile and a half.
Mile and a half north, okay. And Mr. Gender has a question as well.
I guess it's on one of the state. It's for the amount of trips. It says 5 trips or 5 passes or 2.5 rounds. I believe we do have it as 5 trips, which means in and out as classified as 1. That would be number 5 on our conditions. And the other one, like when you show the picture.
Yeah, go ahead. We're not going to be anywhere near that.
Okay, that was just one of the conditions. And also the picture that you have drawn up on the north-south, I believe it is upside down in there.
Which picture? The site plan?
Yes, that is correct.
No, I don't think so. Let me pull it up. That is the south boundary of Northwest 11.
So you're coming off of the road, Old McDonald's Road.
Yeah, and we're going right along the fence line, back about 300 yards, and it's on the south, right on the south fence line of the Northwest 11.
As far as I can see, Dale, here, like the picture's upside down. Your north-south is actually opposite of what it should be here.
Oh, your little compass up top.
That is correct.
Yeah, sorry, I never seen that. Yeah, it is upside down.
No problem, so thank you.
Any further questions? Is anyone prepared to...
Chairman, what do we propose to do with the road? It's 75% ban. He's not going to be able to pass it. What's our options as council, and what's our options as MPC? MPC can't make any decisions as far as that road goes, but where are we at as what do we think we can do here?
Yeah, I guess I'll put that to administration. Is there a way that even a portion of that road could be turned to something that wasn't 75% ban, like the 1.5 miles or whatever? Or what is the options that administration sees?
Well, we have had this road spoken about several times, and we have been patching it with hot asphalt, trying to save it for as long as we can. We did have a ratepayer that invested money into this road when we did the hard surfacing. And last year we did end up ripping up a small section and reverting it back to gravel with oil. I think it's definitely outlived its lifespan. There's no doubt about it. But we haven't met with Old McDonald's, which I think we owe them the courtesy of at least speaking to them. The road is definitely causing us problems. It's falling apart. We think that, based on budget restraints and things like that, that if we did rip it up to gravel and try to get oil on it, that we would be able to maintain it in a fairly good condition, which then would lessen the need for the road ban. But up until council gives us that direction, we keep the road as is, and we continue to patch and try to hold it together.
Okay. Mr. Nyberg?
What is patching that road costing us right now?
Probably between $8,000 and $10,000 a year.
What would it cost to oil it roughly?
Probably about the same. I think, what is it, 27? Yeah.
What would be the reason for oiling?
Dust down.
Or what entity?
Mostly for the reason that the people who placed money into the road was to keep the dust down with tourists going to Old McDonald's.
We're at that point now that we as council made that decision that if you were going to want or need dust control, I, for one, have paid for my dust control in the past to have it in front of my place. We can make the offer to Old McDonald's if they want to pave it. I'm sure they would probably not take up that huge cost, but they are the major benefactor of that.
The road going east and west when you get up to Old McDonald's is still in fairly decent condition. Last time I was up there, it's the one going north and south. I think for safety reasons, though Mr. Anderson would have to enter into a road use agreement, he may want to look at some sort of dust control, or at least make sure that the road is watered in front of his place so that, the trucks don't pull out and, interfere with a trailer or tourists going up there. But I think it's we need to know what council wants us to do, and I also think we have an obligation to sit down with our other ratepayer and have a discussion.
Mr. Nyberg.
Through Mr. Chairman, through to Mr. Anderson. Dale, do you have does this have to go today?
Well, no. Here's my problem. I also run a farming operation, okay? So we farm about 2,000 acres. So to get fertilizer and fuel and grain in and out of this place, I don't want to wreck my road, but there is no way in hell that I can get the amount of volume of grain out of here on a 75% road ban. And the reality is that, this road that we have, there's chunks of this asphalt coming up right now, and it's 1.5 inches thick. Talking to Rick Green, he's telling me that chip seal that they put on this thing has actually done this road more harm than good. So the chip seal that we have, it captures all the moisture in that road. So in the spring, it's like sponge. Like you walk down this thing here 3 weeks ago, it's spongy. You can feel it under your feet. It's that bad. So when you take a truck, even if you are to run 75% on this road, there's chunks of asphalt flying up behind the wheels. There's chunks coming out the size of my laptop computer. And it's 1.5 inches thick. There's absolutely no road left here. So, that's why I phoned all the councillors that, get up here before today and have a look at it. I know this is all MCP, but you all are also on the county council that decides whether you should rip up this road or not. So, let's just put both hats on and have a look at the situation. Reality is, this road is not going to hold up to even an inkling of the traffic if they're pulling trailers up and down it. My other thing while I'm sitting here bitching about things is that car trailers, or these sports trailers and utility trailers, they do as much damage as a big truck. There isn't a gooseneck trailer going down the road here that's not overloaded. So once you start getting a pothole and you're running 3,000 to 5,000 people a weekend up here to McDonald's, do you think that this road is even going to have an inkling of handling the traffic? It's flying apart. Honestly, it is. So what I would recommend do is get in here and tear this thing up. Let's put it back to gravel. The distance between my place and the renter's, my dad's old place, that's about a quarter of a mile. That needs to be oiled. The rest can be dust. I don't give a damn.
Okay. And Mr. Nyberg has a further question or comment.
Mr. Anderson, Dale, so again, my original question was, I guess, are you in a panic for this particular one to go forward? What I would like to see us is come up with a plan through administration to see what we can do with this. And maybe there is, and I will caution this, but maybe there's a 3-way cost share that the county pays some, Old McDonald pays some of the oiling, and then yourself pays some of the oiling. There may be that as an option. I'm just throwing that out there. That's always with a caution. That's just me, myself, and I thinking here. So yeah. I would just check, and if you're not in a panic for this to happen today, we can deal with it at our next MPC meeting and maybe have some of the questions answered that seem to be batting around everybody's head. Yeah,
well, back to the original question. Like I said, I run a farming operation too, where we've got fertilizer and seed, chemical, and all kinds of things coming in and out of here. I can't run at 75% with this stuff. We got fertilizer coming in here from, Manitoba. I can't
What have you done
bring
in the
in.
past? What have you done in the
Well,
past, Dale?
we've snuck it in. But this road this year will not
I
handle
appreciate your honesty.
it. Well, I mean, it has to come. There's no way around it,
Yeah,
right? But I'm telling you right now, this road, if you go down a road right now with 40 ton on it on a Super B, you'll see the ruts in this road for at least a week. You know, it's the worst I've ever seen it.
NPC can't deal with road issues. That has to be a council decision. So Mr. Nyberg was wondering if we could proceed with some kind of a council decision on the road first and then deal with your permit, or do you still prefer your permit to be dealt with today at this meeting?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. We got to deal with it with council, and I wanted to get the permit in so that it's in place. The second thing is, you know, back to when you have your council meeting, the quicker that you let me know if I can haul full loads on this thing or not would be appreciated, but they're coming anyways.
As our administration has suggested, we need to be a team approach here to make it work for everybody. But it's quite obvious that the road has outlived its life, or the surfacing of the road at least has outlived its life, and then we don't want to have one industry impeded, as like say agriculture impeded to serve another one. So it's got to be some kind of an agreement here that'll work for everybody, and hopefully council can achieve that through our administration and both parties involved, and get a better solution. Yeah, better solution for everybody. And
well, we've all got good heads here. We just need to kind of come up with a plan and make it happen.
Great. Okay.
So back to my original application, you know, first step is, do you have a problem with the CKD staying on the south side of section Northwest 11 4021? So question number one, has anybody got a problem with the CKD being stockpiled there instead of beside an acreage owner?
Okay, well, CEO Cassidy has a comment before we go further.
Wondering about public consultation. Have you done any public consultation, or do you plan to do any? The last agricultural depot that we approved did do extensive public consultation.
Right, but we were sitting within, 300 yards of some of the acreage owners. Here we're approximately 800 to 900 yards from one person that's living on the next road allowance over. The closest people to this quarter is me, and that's half a mile away. There's nobody else really within 900 to 3/4 of a mile away.
Okay, Mr. Grover has a question or a comment.
Yeah, Mr. Anderson, would you like to come to the next council meeting as a delegation?
Oh, I don't care. I can do that.
Have the other one's opinion too, and then we can make a decision. Thank you.
Certainly, I can be there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clark.
Back to the original this application though. The MSDS on this, have you got a revised MSDS that shows, or is it still as carcinogenic as it showed on the last one, Dale? Because you may be a half a mile away, but in an uncovered structure just with cement blocks, if we have winds like we had, I know when we looked at your dampness and everything, we indicated that it maybe didn't blow, but if there's spillage like there was, you're going to have that blowing again. So what has changed with the product from the last location other than where it's located to acreages?
Well, it goes back to the same thing. This is a liming product that's being spread on the land with lime spreaders. It's common practice all across the world. Second thing is that it's hydrated lime. It's not calcium oxide. The hydrated lime is carrying moisture. It's not a zero moisture product that is airborne. The second thing is that hydrated lime is different than what the MSDS has that everybody's talking about. And how do you expect me to lime this product and use it as a pH adjuster and a calcium source if you can't spread it on the land, because that'll be your next step. If it's meant to go on the ground, how come I can't put it on?
One addition to that, though, is that Lafarge, like everything we got from them, indicated the negative effects of it and not the positive effects. So if they could tell us that it was the hydrated lime and it had a different MSDS, I'd feel more comfortable on it. But I think we're just shuffling an issue within our county.
So to, I guess, to administration, any suggestions which should come first, the road or the permit here? Yes, the horse or the carriage?
I mean, if I could, Dale, going forward, this permit is this permit. We will decide on the merits of that, but I think the underlying issue that you're having still is that road being a 75% ban that I think council needs to have a serious look at, whether it be for your farming operation, whether it be for the tourist industry with McDonald's. That road needs to be addressed and dealt with. That should be our first, I guess, issue to deal with. I would prefer, and I think maybe our best course is to deal with that first. If the road issue becomes solved, this application becomes a lot easier to put through from that standpoint. That's just one of the hurdles that we'll have to deal with. But going forward, I think that's our best case right now. So I would suggest that we move this to next MPC if you're okay with that, and then we will, between now and then, hopefully have some sort of resolution on the road, whether it be whatever that resolution happens to be. We'll all be in a better knowledge position.
Okay.
Does that sound fair to you?
Yeah, well, just as long as we keep moving, because let me break, I don't know how many people actually realize the number of loads involved in a farming operation. If you're 2,000 acres and you're running, say, 1.5 tons per acre, right? Just on average. So, 1.5 tons has given us, say, 50 bushel wheat crop. That's given us 60 bushel canola crop. That's giving us 100 bushel oat crop, et cetera, et cetera. We take the crop off, we bring it back to the yard, we put it in our bins, then we turn around and we haul it back out to the elevators. So if we've got 2,000 acres at 1.5 tons, we've got 3,000 tons comes in the farm and goes out the farm. So we got 6,000 tons of product going in and out of here. 6,000 tons on a road that's 75%. So when you do the math on a Super Bee, for example, and you say they max out at 65,000 kgs, take away the weight of the tractor, it's say 20,000, you got 45,000 left. 75% of that 45, in fast math, it brings it down to like 720 bushels, which is 20 ton. So you're actually carrying half a load. So now instead of handling 6,000 loads or 6,000 ton, 40 ton is 150 loads. Now we're up to 300 and some loads. It just blows things out of proportion, right? So that's my beef on the farm side. On this fertilizer side, just because of the times that we're in right now, we're not going to sell much CKD. We're not going to do much of anything really. But in a good time, the expectation is where we'd see maybe 5,000 ton a year. It's just a lot of road traffic, and we searched the whole county trying to find a place to put it. We had to get the product out. The only place I could come up with was my backyard. So that's where I am, and this is the problem where it is today.
And I think those are all things that council will take into consideration, And then I think before, we'll go right to Mr. Gender now with another question.
Well, always been led down the path that there are two parts of that road. So I guess I'll have to ask CAO or administration. Does the north half of that road have to be banned year round? I'm just kind of wondering if Dale was able to bring it in, say like along past the Getty House that way there at 100%. And like whether he could have the stipulation of being that we have passed others that along full yearly band, that we give them the rights, whether he could come in from the north side for that half a mile, or no, I guess it'd be just about a mile.
From what I understand, and the last time I looked at the road seems to be under a lot of duress, right from where it turns and goes left to Old McDonald's right down to 601. Whatever's in the base of that road, however it was soil cemented, it's lived way beyond its expected life. Also, when we allow people to come in on different roads, it's usually during the wintertime when the ground's frozen, or in early spring, it's usually in the morning when the ground's still frozen. We'll allow them to run up until the time when things start to get soft. I don't recall Mr. Anderson requesting that. I could be wrong, but that's usually what we do when we're working with guys to try and get loads in and out. We recognize what agriculture is and the timelines that it runs on, but we still have to try to maintain our infrastructure the best we can, because as we're very aware, funds are limited to continue to keep hard surface roads hard surfaced.
Yeah, well, just in, I don't know how many people have been up the road, but definitely the north half of the road is better than the south half of the road. There's a couple sloughs and some springs that have caused some problems in that road. The north half of this road is definitely in better shape. But reality is the chip seal's still an inch and a half thick.
And Mr. Nixon has a question or a comment now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just through to Jacinta. With a development permit like this, does the notice have to go out to adjacent landowners as well? So there would be some sort of public consultation in that part of it.
Put the mic on.
Yes, it would be sent to all the adjacent landowners, and they have the 21-day appeal period to respond, submit appeal.
Okay. So Mr. Nyberg has suggested tabling this till council can have a chance to look at this road and work that way. And Mr. Anderson felt that might be suitable, if I'm not mistaken. So I was wondering, Mr. Nyberg, would you make that a motion?
Yes, I would.
Okay, Mr. Nyberg has moved that we table this development permit application till the next MPC meeting, which gives council a chance.
Administration's okay with that. Work for you guys?
That work administratively?
I just want to clarify with Mr. Anderson. So the application, I know I had discussed this with you earlier, but I'm not sure what your response was. I know there is some product on the site now that you want to process, but do you intend to operate then on a permanent basis if the permit's approved?
There's product sitting up there right now that's going to be going on to fields within the hour. I've got to get it on my own fields. We've got Jack Reardon spreading over here. He's short some tons. I've got stuff to move like today.
So this would be for a permanent operation then? If it's approved, it would be permanent?
It's permanent until either you guys come up with a better site that fits everything, or a road that fits every site, or I'm just trying to deal with the problem at hand and keep on running.
That's fine. I just want some clarification on it.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead. Cherie?
Seeing that it's farming season right now and people are going to be getting their crops in, maybe that I'm seeing that's one reason why this is coming forward now to move forward on this. I do think we need consultation with all the landowners, that are around there, and I think we need to address that road sooner than later, so that at least normal farming operation can get moving forward. But seeing the past history of this road and knowing that people have put forward money to make this a hard surface so that we can keep the dust down. Not only does Old McDonald's Resort use that road, but we also have Phoenix Sands using it, and Buffalo Sounds too, also going up that road to get to their residents. So I think this needs to be dealt with sooner than later, and discussions with landowners.
Any other further discussion on this motion before we vote? Okay, all in favor of a tabling motion? And Cherie, what is your vote on the tabling motion?
Sorry, I'm just thinking about this for a moment. Because if we did deal with it right now, then I'm kind of conflicted because we have to. I think landowners need to be notified too, but that would also go with the permit too, right, Jacinta?
Yes, it would. But it would be
Okay,
just
so-
the immediate.
I'm sorry, but the landowners that we have that we're talking about are Old McDonald's. Kevin McDonald is basically the landowner. The other owner is Walton's place that's straight east of there. And the other person is Lee Brown, which we're going to be spreading some of the CKD on. And myself. So Kevin McDonald, let's make a quick call in. This acreage owner across the road, and Lee Brown. You got three landowners.
What have you decided for a vote there, Cherie?
But Dale, you said it was okay to. At first, you said it was okay to put it forward to next one, and but now you're saying you need to get farming operations going. So.
Well, I'm telling you right now that there's a lime spreader.
So there's two different
Sorry.
issues here, Cherie.
Yeah.
There's two different issues, Cherie. There's the farming has nothing to do with this particular motion at hand to table his CKD.
Okay.
There is absolutely nothing. They're not even remotely close to each other. It has an issue to do with the road, but not whether we table this particular application right now.
Okay. Sorry, I just throughout the whole process, sometimes I have a hard time hearing everybody, so I will vote in favor of the motion.
Okay, the vote was unanimous to table this to the next MPC meeting, and that way council can have a look at the road and probably do some consulting with other interested parties. Okay, so now we're going to move back to 6.1, development permit 19101, the Gracer permit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the applicant is proposing to develop a second detached dwelling, a 2010 manufactured home on a parcel of land less than 80 acres on the northwest of 263818 west of the 4th. This is a discretionary use within the agricultural district. The parcel consists of plus or minus 5.15 acres. The applicant is requesting a 20% variance to the front yard setback from 125 feet to 100 feet due to the utility line placement and landscaping restrictions. The existing detached dwelling is set back 100 feet from the center line of the county's road allowance. There is a site plan, it's in your package, showing the proposed location in line with the home that's there now.
Comments From the area councillor.
Only comment being is with the 5.5 acres, the sewage, would it have to be a pump out sewage, like a truck out sewage, or?
It would have to be, yes. And we don't have the jurisdiction over enforcing the Safety Code Act, but they would have to have a pump out to be in compliance, or a field. They could have a field system.
Have to be different, a lot different than the land and south of there, but for field system. Okay. I guess I would put the motion forward for 3.1.
Okay, and Mr. Clark has moved this approval with the conditions, and discussion now. Mr. Gender.
It's got a pump out now at the moment.
Actually, I have the file. I'm not sure. I believe it was I'll just double check. Like I said, we don't monitor the Safety Code Act or don't enforce it. We just put it as a note on our permits that they comply with the Safety Code Act. But on that size of a parcel, they would need to have a field or holding tank or a mound, maybe, to see what they've put in has a possible. They have not indicated the type of system that they have now. Rich, for you, do you want to speak to it?
Filled it out and brought it in. So if he didn't indicate on there, he didn't indicate to me verbally either, so I'm not sure.
Mr. Grover has a question.
Yes, I do. What if it was 10 acres? Would he be able to have not have to pump the sewer out if it was 10 acres?
If the system was placed right in the center, because it needs to be 300 feet from a boundary. So possibly even on an 8-acre parcel, it could work. But yeah, the home is, I don't have the information on the type of system that they have, and it's not even a requirement in our development permit. We probably should have it, but as we are no longer accredited, we don't enforce it or acquire that information on our application forms.
So then it's not a problem.
It's something that's not our jurisdiction. So as long as he's aware that what he should, the rules that follow. If he's got a small acreage that he can't be pumping, but then that's beyond our jurisdiction.
I could just point out on the conditions, it's under important notes that they comply with the Safety Code Act. It's number under important notes B, and that's just on all our permit forms.
It is noted in the conditions. Then, any further discussion, Mr. Gender?
They own the quarter now.
Balance of the quarter section, no, they just own the acreage, I believe. Can you bring up to?
They're selling the acreage out of it.
Oh, they're
Do a mobile home on it.
Another home.
I'm wondering, like, it is already subdivided out then. So there's an existing sewage accommodation.
Well, so if you look to the very bottom of the slough down there, I'm familiar with this property in that you can almost see the line that it goes down to. The pump out was right beside the dugout. It used to be a full quarter, and then it got cut down to an acreage, but back in those days they didn't care. If you look on the bottom side of that slide and on the right along the property line, that's where it used to be. No, up higher on the top side of that end.
There's the dugout.
Top side of the slough. Over, right there. That's where the pump out used to be.
Already subdivided, it's not our problem.
Okay, we'll call the question then. Mr. Clark's motion was to approve this.
I just have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Is this added mobile home right beside the home?
They're proposing to put it, yes. Just,
So would they hook up directly to the other home sewer rather than having it separate?
I don't know their intention for the septic.
And if I promise you, Chairman, that's a safety code, and again, not our jurisdiction, so.
Does that answer your question, Cherie?
Yes.
Okay. Call the question. All those in favor? Cherie, your vote?
In favor?
Okay, that was carried unanimously. Now we'll move to 6.2, Development Permit 20006, the Squires Kufler application on page 16.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant is proposing to construct a 2,160 square foot ancillary building on Lot 1, Block 1, Plan 1220734. Pursuant to Section 43.11 of the county's land use bylaw, an ancillary building for residential storage purposes with a floor area greater than 1,500 square feet is a discretionary use within the agricultural land use district. The proposed location of the building exceeds the minimum setback distances from property boundaries. Conditions are listed under 3.1.
Mr. Nixon? Okay, thank you. Any discussion on this development permit application? Mr. Gender?
When was this subdivided?
Several years ago, not very long, I'll tell you by the plan number, in 2012.
No further questions. I'll ask the question. All those in favor of approving? And Cherie, your vote?
In favor?
Okay. So I believe that was passed unanimously again. Thank you. Now we'll move to 6.3, Development Permit 20010, Jack, on page 21.
Mr. Chairman, this is also an application for a second dwelling. The parcel size is larger. It's 20 acres on the northwest of 263819, west of the 4th. It's for a 288 square foot log cabin. So the setbacks exceed the requirements of the district. And it's on a skid type foundation, so portable purposes.
Attached to the sewer and the water. They're taxable.
Okay. Area Councilor, Mr. Gender.
Move it, please.
Any discussion? Mr. Nixon.
Question, they said it's going to be on skids, so do they need a development permit? On skids?
It's because it's over 192 square feet. Yeah, if it was less than 192, then they wouldn't have needed a permit. I think he's making them right on site. I was out there and it's under construction. He has one built that seems a lot smaller, so probably under 200 square feet. Very nice. He's doing a very nice job on it.
He builds them himself. Mr. Gender.
And that, how do they measure the 192? Is it within the walls? See if they put a porch onto it. Is it over, or is it just the building size?
Building size, overall size. So
Like I've seen some of them where they have a roof over extending a patio.
A covered patio is considered as well. I'm sure it is.
just enclosed, yeah.
No, it even just covered, I think, is
Yeah, if it's covered as well.
covered patio. If it's not, it's, and there's a definition in there of whether it's a deck or a patio. As a deck, it is raised off the ground. If it's a patio, it's flat on the ground. And a covered deck, I think, is part of a building, and a patio is not typically. It's in the definitions of our MVP. You have to look it up, but I can't remember offhand. It's a funny definition though.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of Mr. Gender's motion? Cherie, are you in favor of this motion or opposed?
In favor.
Okay, carried unanimously. Now we'll move on to subdivision files. 7.1 on page 47, subdivision 202003 S1. Oh, that's the south half. It's 164017. It's Bemco and Crom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the application is to subdivide an existing farmstead. It was developed staggering the two boundaries of the southeast and southwest of 164017 west of the 4th. So there's a detached dwelling, some outbuildings, and mature shelter belt that will be encompassed within the acreage. The existing effluent discharge private sewage disposal system is situated within the minimum safety code setback requirements. The circular laneway access of 601 provides access to the farmstead. And 16 feet of land dedication for future road widening will be required along the range road 17.4 and 17.4. 17.3 and 17.4. TELUS Communications has advised that they will require utility right-of-way easement as a result of the subdivision of the farmstead. Paint Earth Gas Co-op has indicated that they have no objection to the proposed parcel. However, they should gas service be required for the remnant parcel of the quarter section, a separate gas contract and service installation would be required, which is currently $10,000 plus GST. And also, I've received a response to our referral from Alberta Transportation, and they are requiring a service road dedication of 30 meters just in front of the subdivided parcel. They initially thought they would want one of the accesses closed, but they revised that to just require service road dedication along the front of the acreage. So I haven't added it to this condition, but it is on a revised condition. I've added that in.
Jacinda, the applicants are fully aware of that, the service road piece?
Service road, no, I've sent it to there's a surveying company from Uncle Kevin Bernard is acting on their behalf, and I sent it off to him.
Ahmed, I wonder why there you would want a service road. Like, to me, it doesn't make sense.
Her response to that was that if they did want that one of the approaches closed in the future, they would be able to do it if they have that 30-meter road dedication. That's how she addressed it. Instead of taking the actual road, the approach out, they wouldn't leave it there. Just have it along the acreage.
The traffic area.
Mr. Gender.
Telecommunication, like what type of
Never.
there on there?
We generally don't get any no objection really is what their response is generally, but in this case they did ask for the easement, so we've made it a condition.
I'm just kind of wondering, is back in the time, was there, when the road was crooked, did they put it onto their land? Or is it just because of the service part from the main road into there?
If they wanted easement across it, and the parcels developed beyond it, they could have access to connect to their existing line. Generally, ACO Power usually has a condition that they obtain easements just to be able to connect to it if they need to in the future.
Nixon?
I move we approve this subdivision with the conditions listed in 3.1.
And that's Jacinta had mentioned.
Mention that I've added the service road requirement.
Service road, yes, and you might get some push up back on that when you mention that to them, but so.
Just be registered on the title lane. They won't have to dedicate the land at this point, but it will be a part of the.
I'm talking about the service road. Is that what you were talking about?
Yes, it'll just be a dedication for the service road. They won't actually take the service road plan like we do as a road plan. Just
Any further discussion? All those in favor of Mr. Nixon's motion? And Mrs. Neitz?
In favor?
Okay, that one is carried unanimously. Now 7.2 subdivision, this is the Neitz one on page 53.
Yep, so I will leave the conversation.
Okay, thank you, Cherie. Cinta?
The applicant is proposing to subdivide the northeast of 323821 into two fragmented parcels of land separated by a railway. The proposed parcel sizes are approximately 83.85 acres and 69.25 acres. Highway 12 is adjacent to the subject property. Alberta Transportation has advised that they have no concerns or objections to the subdivision of the quarter section, provided the parcels are accessible off of the Municipal Road, Range Road 21-4. There are two existing approaches into the proposed new parcel. The applicant will be required to obtain written consent from CNRL to utilize their lease road for access to the 83.85 acre northern parcel. Pursuant to PD Policy 4.4, 16 feet of land dedication will be required along the full length of the east boundary adjacent to Range Road 21-4. So there's one correction. I had verified with Sharon whether CNRL had acquired this lease from Trident, and they have not yet. So it's under the Price Waterhouse would be the contact to obtain the approval for the lease road.
I would move this forward. I'm sure they're already using that lease access road, so I can't see that there being any issue with it. This makes good sense.
Really wide approach, so I believe it might even be a joint access where they have. So it's very wide.
And there's no other way to access that road or that section from the road, so I mean it's been there forever.
Further discussion? Okay, I'll call the vote on Mr. Nyberg's motion to approve. All those in favor? Opposed? We have one opposed.
No, we don't have.
Oh, okay. We have
I'm just a stroll up here.
all in favor with Mrs. Neitz abstaining from the vote. Okay. New business, the 8.1 NRCB referral on page 58.
You've seen this application before. There's just an amendment to it, to the size of the what is this, crossing line. I just wanted to get the numbers there. So this is just an updated notice of decision from the NRCB. The dimensions were modified from 61 meters, as you can see there, to 91.4 meters by 91.4 by 5.5 meters deep. So that's on the existing confined feeding operation. So they just refer it to us for comments, or if we have any objections. Obviously, it's under their jurisdiction, but we are able to provide comments.
Are there any comments or objections, Mr. Nixon? Okay, thank you.
One comment. They're moving up how many birds? Is it like triple amount of birds they're getting?
It's more, it's from almost 80,000, is it not total? This is not this application. This is just for the manure storage at Willow Colony.
Well, that other one's
Donalda.
Mr. Gentler has
Tiny name, tried to.
Page 63, in number 3, it said that noted in section 2, Panoka County is a directly affected party. They always are.
I think
Because it's
Panoka County.
in our boundaries, we're a directly affected party.
So Jenner's pointing out it's Panoka County, not the Stettler County. I think I would imagine
Maybe they
No, you
moved.
said number 7.
typo or a copy and paste of
missed one spot to copy and paste. Okay,
I'm sorry, Les, I didn't hear that whole conversation.
Oh, Mr. Gender just pointed out, it says Ponoka County is directly affected party, and then Andrew Brishik had pointed out that's probably something like a typo where a copy and paste document was used, and Ponoka should really be Stettler County.
Maybe they're moving.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, they want to make the lagoon bigger and they want to use the same liner. Why wouldn't they enlarge the liner at the same time? Yeah, well, yeah, I hear that. Safer if the liner was.
On a clay liner in there, or is it an actual rubber liner? It's probably just a clay liner, so they're just using the same liner. I don't know their setup. What do you know, Ernie?
Can they just undercut a meter?
Clay.
Every 6 inches, they've got to do a test on it. Then when they are done the whole lagoon, they come back in just to verify that they are doing the test. They will do cores and test it.
There's no rubber liner in there.
Back to clay liner.
Osteen's, they had to do a plastic liner.
Sand.
Well, and close to the slough.
If there's no further discussion, we'll vote on Mr. Nixon's motion to accept for information. All in favor? And Mrs. Neitz, are you in favor of accepting for information?
Yes, I am. But I had a really hard time hearing all of this conversation. So.
Okay, sorry. I'll just ask, I guess, everyone to speak up a little bit then. So that was carried unanimously. Now we'll move to old business, 9.1, a stop order at Red Willow, page 84.
Send Mel the report this morning. Fortunately, I hadn't included it in the package, but we've dealt with this before. It's the site in Red Willow where they have a long commercial truck parked in the front laneway, and also our protective services is working to get a court order to for enforcement on the cleanup of this property. And as you know, those non-essential court cases have been postponed until further notice. We don't have any date when that will happen. No, small little details.
Well, so it's a case of hurry up and wait by the sounds of it. So, okay.
We can table it and wait till he has a court order. We can deal with it now and ask that they remove the cargo trailer.
Always ask.
You can ask, perhaps, yeah, makes sense. I mean, you know, he's stalling it completely.
That's the draft stop order that you have on your.
Okay.
Or we could just submit a formal request asking them to and not proceed with the stop order. We can do it in stages. Our first correspondence could just be asking that they remove it because it's not permitted in that area or in a Hamlet residential, or we start with the stop order, whichever you feel.
Really the wish of the board. Where does this board want to start? Letter first or go right to the stop order? Mr. Nixon.
Is this related to the email that you sent out today?
Yes, was that a report in the email?
Yes.
Draft stop order.
That we could, I would like to make a motion that did somebody make a motion?
We're just.
Here, you, Counselor, we're waiting for you.
Okay, well, thank you. That we send a letter to, ask them to comply with what we expect to have done, and hopefully that'll get something moving. I think they've been verbally asked a couple times to clean it up. So.
Yeah, and they haven't done any cleanup, so we're waiting on a stop order or a court order to go in and remove it. We'll move I think you've seen the picture. The last one.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Voluntary compliance. As mentioned, we do have protective services following up on this file as well for the same property for nuisance bylaw issues. And we have not yet seen voluntary compliance as a result of our work with them. So a letter's effectiveness may be limited.
I have two questions, Mr. Chairman. Number one, do we know if this is a rented property? Maybe the area councilor does, or administration. Is it a rental property? My question is, who do we send the letter to? To the
landowner.
Are they living there? Do we know? No indication. Number two, what if we went and started cleaning up without a court order?
I don't want to think we want to go there, but
I'm in court anyways afterwards, after the fact. I mean, our hands are basically tied. This is the time to be. I mean, just.
I'm just going to add to that, and I don't know if you're aware, but Protective Services is also working with cleaning up that Watson property again. So those are 2 court orders that they're seeking.
Is that right?
I'd have to send a resolution in or something to get some attention on that.
Remember that the 2 properties are connected, so there seems to be a lot of same activities.
That's a bylaw.
To speak to the matter of the courts, there's some hope and rumor that the courts may start operating by teleconference to resume trial of non-criminal cases and non-emergent cases. So that some of our outstanding issues may yet see some traction before the fall.
Mr. Nixon, you had something.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The issue came from people who owned houses in Red Willow and who wished to rent houses in Red Willow, 2 or 3 different people, because this, of course, when they have something like that next door, nobody wants to really rent unless you're the same kind of person. But on another note, seeing we're cutting back on road construction this year, maybe we could move in a D8 cat, for example.
A little bigger, instead of bigger.
Mr. Nixon, if that's your intention, I think we need the stop work order.
We need a lot more lawyers.
Anyways, are you still comfortable with your original motion for a letter, or do you want to move to the stop work order?
My opinion was that I don't see what good the stop work order is going to do right at this present time, but maybe it will.
It's your call. It's your motion.
Well, and I would certainly take advisement from my fellow board members for that as well, because I was thinking, throw a letter out. Maybe it's just been verbally so far. Maybe an official letter will do some good. Maybe a stop order won't get done anything till next spring. I don't know.
Unfortunately, that's the nature of these. I think that's the route that we go down. If we go down with that and send a letter and nothing happens, we go to a stop order. When we do go to court, we'll be able to say, we tried, and it just makes our case that much stronger when we do finally get in front of the magistrate. So it makes sense to do that.
And Mr. Fitzgerald.
Just to echo what James said, with my experience with dealing with the Watson property, when that went to court, that was one of the first questions that the judge asked. He wanted to see the background information, that we had exhausted all of our avenues before we went in heavy-handed. So I think it definitely adds some weight to it. If it does go to court and we want to get an enforcement order, they're always going to ask and kind of side on the favor of the resident. And they do actually own this property. It isn't a rental. They do own it. So from judging from that experience, even though the letter probably isn't going to make a difference to them, it will make a difference once it gets to court.
Proper paper trail is important. And Mr. Clark.
Do you put a time frame on the letter, so the next step would be stop work order? So they have a month to comply, or to
usually a date of compliance.
Yeah,
which we always do. Put a date that.
As long as there's something to follow up, and then their understanding is the next thing.
This letter was originally intended to be brought in March, so and Kara had prepared that. So revised to coincide, and this is the stop order. That would be the next step if we send a letter this month and then put it 3 weeks. Generally, it's kind of.
Okay.
Weeks. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Nixon's made the motion to send them a letter to comply within 3 weeks. So, any further discussion? All in favor? Mrs. Neitz?
I'm in favor.
Okay, that one was carried unanimously. Now we have an in-camera session on the agenda, 10.1. So our live streaming will end for in-camera. Who will move us in camera? Mr. Clark moves in camera.
I got it.
Grover adjourns.
Never did it.